That's what he's calling God. Look here. He said it's also, the universe is full of spirit, or spirits, plural, singular. And through the whole thing, there is a divine moving power that pervades the elemental nature. Look here. That is to say, right, there's a divine moving power through the whole thing. Through the universe, through everything. Soul, therefore, is in motion. Must be in motion because there's divine moving power that pervades the elemental nature of what is. So look here, what's soul? When I got here tonight, I got here because I had a plan how to get here. I commanded myself to do it. I wanted to do it because I thought it would be a benefit to me and perhaps to others to talk about these things. And therefore there's something in me that cares, that has a care for what I'm doing. There's something in me that commands, and there's something in me that plans. And as a consequence, I got in my car and got here by directing the car through its various configurations to get here.
You also have telemetry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And what this is in classic Greek thought is soul. That's what they mean by soul. And therefore, I could push myself into motion. See, soul is always in motion. And look here, since the divine power is the moving power that pervades the elemental nature of all things, then if that's true, if this power pervades the entire universe, my soul must have that same power, and it moves. Therefore, by conclusion, the gods are blended in all things. Now, Thales was quite interesting. He studied in Egypt. All of these thinkers, by the way, were from Miletus or Milesian, the cities of Milesian or around Miletus, which we would now call on the western side of Turkey in the Aegean Sea. Now look, there was a big discussion about how you could determine the height of the pyramids. And he said, excuse me, he said, what to do is simply stand, and whenever you see that the sun casts a shadow, and that shadow is exactly the same as your height, then merely at that same time mark where the shadow of the pyramid is, and you will then be able to judge with great accuracy the height of the pyramid. He was a very unusual creative thinker. He was ridiculed by his fellows because he was into philosophy and speculation. And so he decided a good thing to do would be to show people that a philosopher also has a mind. And so since he was interested in the heavens and he was able to take great interest in astronomy, he realized, according to what I do not know, but he anticipated there would be a heavy olive crop by the heavy rains that came that year. And so in the middle of the winter, he went around and he bought up, borrowed money, bought up, leased all of the olive presses. There was a great harvest of olives, and he sat back and he said, I'll rent you my olive presses, and made a mint. And therefore they changed his opinion. They changed their opinion of Thales. He was also extremely interesting. He was also acted as an advisor to the military. There was a campaign going on and troops had to cross a river. It was difficult to ford the river. So he said, I think I know a way to do that. He just simply went upstream and got the troops to dig a passage so that therefore the stream was split in two and they waded across. It's this play between the everyday world and philosophy that marks all of these thinkers that we're going to explore. Now look, let's go back. As you now look at Thales, let me go back to what Aristotle says. Remember what he said? The first principle and basic nature of all things is water. Is there a difference? Well, one thing I must add here, you see, when he said a divine moving power pervades the elemental nature of things, he said that is moisture or water, since everything can be said to flow. Would you not agree that's a quite interesting image? Because if you have a camera, as you know, if you speed up any process going, you can see the whole thing going in and out, flowing as it were. So it's an interesting metaphor, but that's not the central point. The central point is in here. Therefore, when Aristotle pulls out and says about Thales that the first principle and basic nature of all things is water, according to Thales, yes, he did say that, but he said far more interesting things, which his contemporaries picked up, rather than Aristotle. Now, who are these people I've been quoting up there? Well, the most interesting thinker is Simplicius in his commentaries. Aetius, I was going to write with this. And Plutarch, and that's where I got these quotes, and Diogenes Laertius. And these are the primary thinkers who were talking and reflecting upon the works of Thales. And we can compare, therefore, their view, it's represented here, and what Aristotle represents as Thales. Would you not agree there's a difference? So let's go for the second. Now, it's very interesting, you see, because when we move from Thales to Anaximander, these are all people who lived in the same area, Miletus, in what we now call Turkey. And Anaximander was a student. He worked with Thales, worked alongside of Thales, and so too did Anaximenes work with Anaximander. But I would like to talk about this diagram in 1 minute. Anaximander did this. He said, look here, Thales was quite correct in his view, but he added to it. Now, let's first get our friend Aristotle and see what he says about it. Here is the entire quote, one quote, that Aristotle has on this man. The unlimited is the first principle of things that are. It is from which the coming to be of things and qualities take place, and it is that into which they return when they perish by moral necessity, giving satisfaction to one another and making repatriations for their injustice according to the order of time. That's the whole statement. That's what Aristotle says, that Anaximander, and therefore we build up a view of him from Aristotle based upon that quote. I would like to go to other sources, and again I'm using the same kinds of sources as before, the only new one that I'll mention is what is called pseudo-Plutarch. So let's take a look. First, Anaximander did something quite interesting. He designed a whole series of sundials. He created a map of the heavens, and he made a celestial map. And he saw it as spheres, and within it he located the stars. He said, as far as the evidence it is, that you can only say